Hello, Laser Artifex here to show you how to install our V2 Air Assist kit. First, I'll start off by going over the individual electrical components for the V2 Air Assist kit.
Here we have the control board. This control board connects to the laser controller to control the air assist and other options that we have available. This control board has RJ45 input jacks to attach to our control devices, as well as a 6-pin output connector. This is the exact same output connector that is on the control board, and it serves as a pass-through. The power output of this pass-through does pass through the fuse block on the board, so it is also protected just like all the other components are. Do not plug any other RJ45 cables into these connectors, or else you will damage the board and most likely the other component that you are plugging it into. The kit comes with the appropriate settings and fuse installed for your controller, but you may have to remove the top to replace a blown fuse or to adjust the settings if desired. In order to remove the top, you have to undo these 4 pins that are holding the acrylic piece on. Press in on these pins while slowly pushing up on the top. And now the top is released. With the top off, you now have access to the control board fuse block as well as the milliamp selection switch. The milliamp selection is located here. It has 2 different labels for the different settings. On the left is a Rison or 300 milliamp settings. The Rison setting will work for the Rev1 boards, but it does limit the available current from the 500 milliamps from the board down to the 300 milliamps of this board. For Rev1 controllers, flip the switch to the right and you will get the full 500 milliamp output capability. Do not run a Rison controller with the board in the 500 milliamp Rev1 setting, or you could burn out your board's output. The fuse block is located on the board right here. Do not attempt to modify or adjust the fuse while the board is plugged into the system. To remove the fuse, take a screwdriver or some other small device and pop open the lid as shown here. Then I do take the screwdriver and also pop open the fuse up, and now the fuse is removed. Please follow the correct instructions to install the appropriate fuse for your board. This item is the controller cable that connects from the control board on the laser to the control board of the V2 kit. The green connector of this cable will plug into the bottom left of your control board, whether it's a Rev1 or a Rison controller. Then the opposite end, the RJ45 end, will plug into the upper left of the V2 control board. This item is the manual air assist override switch. This allows you to turn on air whenever the laser is operational in case you forget to change the setting for a specific layer. The button is depressed here and it stays latched. It will also light when the air is operational and on. The cable plugs into the upper right of the V2 control board, as shown here. This item is the high flow solenoid and low flow throttle valve assembly. The low flow throttle valve must be adjusted to the appropriate flow settings. For the base kit, this flow will be present during the entire operation of the laser. The flow from this throttle valve is set during testing. However, you can adjust it to meet your desired flow characteristics during non-cutting operations. In order to do that, you must loosen the lock nut screw that is shown here. Loosen it up off the base. Now you can adjust the upper portion of this to reach your desired flow setting. It is best to do this with air on so you can hear and feel the amount of air that is exiting. The high flow solenoid valve turns on the high flow air for cutting operations and turns off the high flow air for non-cutting operations such as engraving and rastering. This assembly connects to the V2 kit in the middle slot on the right. This item is a V2 base kit with the upgraded close-off solenoid. This solenoid closes off the flow of air so that you don't have the parasitic air drain during non-cutting operations. This item is the V2 kit with the upgraded air cutoff solenoid. This solenoid cuts off the air when the laser is idle and not performing any operations with the laser. This solenoid closes when the laser is idle, therefore cutting off the parasitic air drain that is present on the base kit. This is a normally open solenoid, so therefore, if you have any type of electrical failure or you blow a fuse, you will always have air constantly flowing to the laser head. If you buy the V2 kit with the upgraded solenoid, your kit will arrive as shown here. The throttle valve is moved to the top and functions the exact same way as the other throttle valve. In order to adjust, loosen the lock nut, adjust the screw, and then tighten the lock nut back down. These components plug into the control board in the same way that the high flow solenoid does on the base kit, and the cutoff solenoid plugs into the bottom right.
Now that we have gone over all the components, I'm going to show you how to install the kit into your laser.
I'm going to install the V2 Air Assist kit onto our dual head 80 watt OMTech machine. I have turned off and disconnected the machine from power, which is a must if you're going to be adjusting any type of electrical connections. Now the first thing that you want to do before you get started on the installation is to make sure that the controller, shown here, has an empty access port here. On Arita controllers, this is labeled as CN1. On Rison controllers, it's labeled as output. If you are unsure or have any questions, feel free to email us. Your controller may arrive with items already connected into this connector. There are two options. Option one is to move the wires from this connector onto additional connectors shown here. Typically, the wires used are 24 volt and ground, and they are accessible here on these connectors as well, 24 volt and ground. The second option is the V2 control board comes with a green connector. If you are able to find a mounting location that's close enough, you can unplug this connector and plug it directly into the green connector on the control board. For this video, I'm going to place the V2 control board on the access panel here. I will most likely move this after installation to a place that I deem more acceptable. Feel free to move the control board to any location that you feel is acceptable as well. This has a magnet on the back side for easy mounting. We will also be including some Velcro that you can use to attach the board instead of the magnet. In order to use the Velcro, remove the magnet from the back of the board, peel the tape off, stick it on the back of the board, and then stick the opposite side of the Velcro anywhere you want. This can be particularly handy if the connector here is too short and you want to stick the board right on top. So to show you how it is done with the Velcro, I have stuck the Velcro onto the back side of the board and I've removed the plastic covering, so this is now sticky. I want to have this green plug near where this plug is going to be removed, but I do not want it to interfere with any plugs that are plugging in. So I'm going to take this board and I'm going to stick it right here. And so now, even though it's upside down, it's stuck on here, and you can plug in this plug into this spot, leaving the spot wide open for our controller cable. The first item I'm going to install is a manual bypass switch, so let's get started. The switch requires a 5/8 inch or 16 millimeter diameter hole, as shown here. To install the switch, remove the locking nut, take the RJ45 cable end, pass it through, access the panel, grab the cable, continue pulling the cable through until the switch is flush. Then grab the nut, thread it up the back side of the cable, and tighten it back underneath the switch until the switch is snug. Once you have the switch snugly installed, take the end of the cable and run it down through any accessible hole down to where the controller is. Now take the end of the cable and plug it in to the top right of the control board. So now I'm going to install the solenoids for the V2 Air Assist kit. This is for the upgraded kit, but the installation will be exactly the same as the base kit, minus the additional cutoff solenoid. Both of these solenoids come with magnets on the bottom, so they're easy to attach almost anywhere onto the laser. For this setup, I'm going to install it where the Air Assist pump used to be. Keep note of the direction of the solenoids. Your flow needs to be, in this case, from right to left. The two cables will then need to be run to the control board and plugged into the appropriate locations. For both the base kit and upgraded kit, the yellow cable gets plugged into the middle connector. For the upgraded kit only, the Air Assist cutoff solenoid goes on to the bottom right connector. Now, with all other items connected, I'm going to connect the control cable from the laser controller to the laser Artifex control board. Take the green plug, plug it in to the plug that we cleared out earlier, and then take the end of the orange cable and plug it in to the top left of the control board. Now, for the pneumatic side, take the line from the laser head and connect it to the output side of the solenoids. Make sure all connections are snug, as you do not want leaks here. Now, we need to get the air line from the external pump into the laser. The kit comes with a bulkhead and a rubber grommet that you may use to pass through the laser. We have these connectors on hand, so we will be using those that are already installed. Take the provided air line and pass it through the bulkhead and into your laser. Take the air line from the compressor and plug it into the input side of the solenoid assembly. So now the air line is coming from the compressor through the laser into the input side of the solenoid assembly. You can follow the flow diagram arrows on the solenoids out up to the laser head. Now, with the air line installed and everything connected inside the laser, take the line that's going to the solenoid assembly and attach it to the right side of the regulator assembly. So now the left side of the regulator is going to be coming from the compressor, and the right side of the regulator will be going to the solenoid assembly. The regulator comes preset to around 30 psi. To adjust the pressure output from the regulator, pull up on the top and then rotate either clockwise or counterclockwise to increase or decrease the pressure, and then push the top back down to lock it in. I have now reconnected power and turned on the machine. Now I can begin testing my setup. The control board has LEDs that indicate the status of some of the outputs. The top left LED is a power LED. This LED should be on at all times when the laser is on. If this LED is ever not on, that most likely means that the fuse has blown and you may need to replace it. There are two additional LEDs on the board for both the high flow solenoid and the cutoff solenoid. Currently the laser is idle, so the cutoff solenoid LED is active. When the high flow solenoid is active, its LED will light. You may also notice that I have connected my stack light to the bypass plug of the board. The stack light shows the status of the laser with a quick look. Currently, the laser is idle. When the laser is in operation, the stack light will be yellow, and if there's an error, the stack light will be red. Now, I have everything connected and am ready to perform a test run to make sure that everything works as intended. I have created a file in Lightburn that alternates between air and non-air layers. I currently have the laser disabled because I do not want to actually cut anything, but I want to make sure that it still performs properly with the air assist. You may note that I cannot manually turn on the air right now. The solenoid currently has the air off, and when that air is off on the solenoid or the machine is idle, the air assist will not function, nor will the air flow. This keeps the air off all the time, even if you turn this on and step away and forget to turn it off. Now I am going to start the file, and the initial layer will have low flow air only. Low flow air, this light is not on. High flow air, the light turns on. Touching the switch does not do anything. Turning it on or off always keeps the airflow enabled. Now that that layer is finished, we're back to the low flow layer, where I could turn on high flow air if I decided to, or turn it off. This is if you forget to enable air assist on a layer that requires it, such as the cutting layer. The next layers will continue to automatically switch until the operation is completed. This is how the LEDs behave on the board during operation. The machine is not idle, so the cutoff solenoid is open. Air assist is now on. Now air assist is off. Back on. Back off. The job is finished, so now the cutoff solenoid turned back on. Same operation, but with the solenoid view. High flow on. High flow off. High flow on. High flow off. Job complete.
That should be all you need to successfully install the V2 Air Assist kit. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to email us at the address provided at the bottom of this screen. Thank you and happy lasering!